Look, I don't care how wink-winkish this movie is, there's no way Dana would be prancing around in her panties within full view of the neighborhood, and with the f***ing window open.
CinemaSins should probably care how wink-winkish this movie is, since that's a large part of what it's trying to do. Women being scantily clad for no discernible reason other than eye candy is a weirdly large part of American horror films. It's almost like CinemaSins only pretend to understand horror tropes so they can claim they get Cabin in the Woods.
And if Holden's as cute as Kurt says he is.
Wow, this movie broke the Bechdel test twice in 30 seconds. That's a failed Bechdel test inside a failed Bechdel test.
The Bechdel-Wallace test is one test for a whole movie. It can only be passed or failed once. And FYI, Cabin in the Woods passes it.
A giant bong in your father's van? What are you, stoned?
Why do these people hang out with Marty? This is a mix of people that walked out of the J. Crew catalog, but they pal around with one super hippie guy that's high all the time?
Right, because it's unrealistic for people to have friends.
Nest is empty. We're right on time.
How long has this asshole been on the roof?
Probably a while. Do CinemaSins get similarly confused when they watch stakeouts and cop shows?
What if they'd left from Kurt's house?
Well, there's a satellite tracking the van that would probably tip them off to where the van is.
And why didn't they leave from Kurt's house, considering it's his van?
Maybe because the girls were closer to the cabin than Kurt, Holden, and Marty were. Or maybe because Kurt wanted to pick up his girlfriend and they made plans around that. Does it really matter? Can we quit it with the needless questions now? Please? No? Okay, fine. If that's the case, then I'll have you know that the van isn't Kurt's. It's his father's.
A giant bong in your father's van?
There. Now we're both awful.
This closed sign makes me think maybe this place is closed.
The creepy gas station attendant made me think something similar.
Sign says closed.
But yeah, good catch finding that sign. Makes me wonder if the movie, as previously pointed out as subverting horror tropes, is subverting the horror trope of teens doing dumb stuff like wandering where they're not supposed to. Or maybe the movie's having fun with the creepy gas station attendant harbinger trope, a person who raises some red flags but the main characters don't pay attention. Or maybe, just maybe, it's all that stuff. I don't know, that's kind of crazy.
Sudden CGI eagle of suddenness. Dead only for us, the audience. A real eagle would have sniffed out the danger and flown far away from this bullshit, but whatever.
Eagles and birds in general are known to fly straight into windows, let alone invisible walls. It's a thing. Not sure where this birds can sniff out danger stuff is coming from. Criticizing something for not being realistic would work a little better if CinemaSins had at least a tiny grasp on reality. And if they're making fun of bad CGI, I'm surprised CinemaSins missed the exceptionally wonky CGRV in the background of the scene.
Also, this is one of the few missteps this movie makes. Showing us this electronic invisible security grid right now is dumb. We've got plenty of evidence something is funky from the cuts to Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins, and this undercuts the potential shock of the later scene when the elder Hemsworth motorcycles himself into the grid and dies a hilarious and shocking death.
If the eagle flying into the invisible force field wasn't there, CinemaSins would criticize the scene where Kurt slams into that field because it would come out of nowhere. This is a classic setup payoff. The bird crashing scene is the setup of the force field, and Kurt slamming into it later is the payoff.
Why did they need a camper to drive out to the cabin? It's clearly less than a day's drive, and the cabin is where they're all sleeping. They could have all fit into Marty's Volvo and saved on gas.
They could technically fit into Marty's car, but 1, that wouldn't be nearly as comfortable considering all the luggage. 2, it's Kurt's dad's RV, so it's readily available. 3, they haven't been to this cabin before, so if it turns out not to be to their liking, they can sleep in the RV.
I'm the Spider, and I'm sleeping in the Rambler.
And 4, Marty's car doesn't have a bike rack on it for Kurt's motorcycle.
How we're slowing down cognition. The hair dye.
Dumb blonde. Very artistic.
Works its way into the blood through the scalp.
Or you could spend much less time and money recruiting dumber kids. There are literally millions of horny, athletic, bookish, drunk, and virginal teenagers out there, but they had to pick the ones that are academic all-stars?
The movie is satirizing the dumb blonde trope in horror. The audience is being let in on the joke that this is a self-conscious horror film. And as far as the just getting dumb kids thing goes, that negates the entire premise of the film, where horror is being manufactured for the ancient ones, aka the audience's entertainment. Like how Hollywood takes horror film characters and shoves them into predetermined templates. If the kids were already dumb, smart, funny, and athletic, then that muddies the point about this situation being manufactured.
The lambs have passed through the gate. They are come to the killing floor.
So wait, this is a professional setting where people in lab coats construct horror scenarios, but this guy is an actual horror movie nutjob?
Mordecai, the gas station attendant, is acting. He has a role to play just like the sacrifices do, that of the harbinger. the person who warns the sacrifices of danger and is ignored. Mordecai takes his role very seriously, like a method actor. This is made into a joke in the very scene CinemaSins is showing for this sin, where Mordecai drops his act momentarily.
Their blind eyes see nothing of the horrors to come. Their ears are stopped. They are the gods' fools.
Well, that's how it works.
Cleanse them. Cleanse the world of their ignorance and sin. Bathe them in the crimson of... Am I on speakerphone?
No, absolutely not. Speakerphone, no, I wouldn't do that.
Yes, I am. I can hear the echo.
Ronald's an intern, so it's odd that he would know what maintenance picks every year. How long has he been an intern?
That's the joke. That the organization that conducts ritual sacrifices is also taking advantage of its interns like Ronald by keeping them on for at least a few years without hiring them.
Do you know if we get the overtime bonus on this one?
Counting's over there. Ask them.
No, I don't need to. I already know the answer.
I'm an intern. So I don't qualify for OT?
Seems a little harsh, doesn't it? It's just people letting off steam.
No, it's gambling casually on actual human deaths.
Again, that's the joke. The organization is heartless and likes money. Like Hollywood. Do you get it now?
Yeah, we rig the game as much as we need to, but in the end, they don't transgress.
They can't be punished.
This is still a weird system. If they need the victims to make the wrong choice, or it doesn't count, then how about all the other manipulations that led them to that wrong choice? They basically changed these people through chemicals and shit, so how does that not factor into it?
I'm not Joss Whedon or Drew Goddard, but I'd wager the reason the system involved in getting these sacrificial kids to make stupid decisions might seem weird to people due to the horror film metaphor. Horror films, particularly slashers, involve kids making stupid decisions simply to get someone killed or further the plot. The writers, in this case the organization, the engineers of the situation, don't particularly care why the teens make stupid decisions, just that stupid decisions are made. If no stupid decisions were made, the movie wouldn't exist. Or in other words,
they don't transgress.
They can't be punished.
Please enjoy the music while the camera follows this girl's ass through the cabin.
Please enjoy this pointless observation disguised as a sin while I pad my video and take advantage of YouTube's recommendation algorithm that rewards longer videos.
I dare you to make out with that wolf.
This is the first dare out of the gate. They just f***ing started this game, and this stone motherfucker dials up the dares to 11 right off the bat.
This isn't the first dare. Marty says,
Okay, my turn.
Meaning the teens have been playing this game before we cut back to the cabin.
The wind must have blown it open.
Because that's a thing that happens.
That makes what kind of sense?
Oh, spoke too soon. But also, Stoner Guy would be excellent at CinemaSins.
No, he wouldn't. Marty's perceptive and smart. He doesn't strike me as the kind of person to screw up Roman numerals or say something as mind-bogglingly stupid as "there's no gravity in space."
Your cousin is into some weird shit.
Like collecting memorabilia from old Tom Hanks movies.
I guess Easter eggs are sins now, for some reason.
Okay, he opens a music box, this chick takes a necklace off a mannequin, this idiot touches some film, and this Thor motherfucker's tinkering with a sphere. But this movie will choose this gal's diary opening as the act that decides which evil creature will assault these people.
No, Dana stopped everyone from doing the things that would cause their respective monsters to come out by saying,
Guys, listen to this.
The act that causes the zombie redneck torture family to come out is after that, when Dana reads the Latin in the diary out loud, an Evil Dead reference among Evil Dead references.
April 4th. Father was cross with me and said I lacked the true faith.
Movie reads part of the script to the witch several years before it was written.
You could break your fingers doing all the air quotes for CinemaSins jokes.
I have found it in the oldest books, the way of saving our family.
Too bad these people aren't good enough at CinemaSins, or else they would have asked themselves why Anna Patience Buckner didn't just say this Latin phrase herself, while she was still alive to write it in a diary.
Yeah, too bad these kids don't constantly ask pointless questions like CinemaSins does. Nothing says Anna didn't try to speak the Latin sentences. She might have tried and it didn't work, causing her to write it down in the hope that someone outside of her family would read it.
30 straight f***ing seconds of zombie rising footage that's too dark to tell what the hell these things actually look like.
I think that's the point. If the zombie murder family were fully lit and the audience could see every detail, that wouldn't be as scary. Also, it's nighttime.
Damn it, I have to take 1 cent off for the movie referencing the Deadites in the Evil Dead trilogy.
I love that CinemaSins missed multiple other Evil Dead references and only managed to catch one that spells it out for them. And even then they missed a reference directly above the one that they caught.
Yes, you did. Yes, you had zombies. But this is zombie redneck torture family, see? They're entirely separate species.
Yeah, but how do you distinguish between witches and sexy witches? Isn't that a subjective thing? Can't I get a boner for the ugly witch too?
The point of this scene is that the distinction between a zombie and a zombie redneck torture family is silly and arbitrary, like the distinction between witches and sexy witches. That's the joke.
Looking at this board, how the hell were they supposed to choose half the things written here while they were in the cellar?
According to the official visual companion for Cabin in the Woods, every item in that cellar had a story behind it, and the ability to conjure up another monster or creature, even if it's not mentioned or seen in the film. Fans on the Cabin in the Woods wiki have even gone through the basement scenes and matched specific artifacts in the film to the potential monsters we see on the betting board. And a few of them were confirmed by Drew Goddard, like that fortune teller machine summoning the clowns and the film strip summoning Kevin. While talking about the basement artifacts with the Daily Beast, Goddard also said, "This is the sort of thing no one would ever notice unless they paused the DVD. But we wanted to make sure that everything in the third act lined up with what was in the cellar, so you could understand the internal logic." It's sad that CinemaSins dismisses that internal logic despite the film going above and beyond to address it. But that's par for the course with these Everything Wrong With videos. CinemaSins routinely negates the internal logic of films for cheap laughs or quick nitpicks.
Everything in our stable is remnant of the old world.
Thank God we have this newbie on the team so we can get some proper expositing.
Otherwise, we would either not know what's going on or know significantly less. How is that a bad thing?
You get used to it.
Should you?
Overly ethical guy is in the wrong job.
Overly ethical guy is a stand-in for the audience, and in this scene acts as a criticism of why we watch so many horror films in the first place.
We need the Japanese crew to get it done.
This shot of the ghosts in Japan is goddamn hilarious, and I'm tempted to remove a sin. But the fact that the director needs an athlete, a whore, and a fool, in addition to a scholar and a virgin for proper sacrifice, makes this grade school setting definitely sinful.
Here, CinemaSins reveals just how little they understand the central concept of Cabin in the Woods. The majority of this movie is dedicated to mocking American horror films, since the events take place in the US. But the scene CinemaSins is commenting on here is referencing Japanese horror. The American tropes at play are the ones seen in American-style horror films like teen horror and slashers. That's where the 5 character archetypes come into play, along with the types of monsters being summoned. But J-horror operates on a different set of tropes that are being referenced in this shot. A ghost girl with long black hair and white clothes being especially prominent in Japanese horror films. So the American tropes wouldn't come into play for the Japanese team. The director says as much at the end of the film.
It's different in every culture.
They came up from the basement and this girl was still so sexed up she did a twerk dance in front of the fire, and everyone forgot the basement full of freaky shit, some of which they touched. Though, to be fair, were I witness to this particular fireplace dance, I also would have forgotten basically my entire life up until that moment.
I'd tell CinemaSins that this scene is actually a reference to the original Wicker Man if I wasn't 99% sure that they'd jerk off to it.
Ooh. This movie would not receive very many sins. That's a particularly interesting place that I paused it at, just FYI. Oh, those are actual boobs. Oh, there's more. God, what's more? Oh, shit. That's a sex scene.
He's on full academic scholarship, and now he's calling his friend an egghead?
We got the explanation about the dumbing Jules down from the hair dye, but what's Kurt's excuse for suddenly turning into a Neanderthal?
I'd wager they pumped in pheromones to change Kurt into a sex-crazed meathead because we see them doing that exact thing later. It's not that big of a leap to make, but of course CinemaSins wants everything spelled out for them.
The pain outlives the flesh.
Holy shit, they brought that thing back upstairs with them? F***ing why?
To read it.
What is that?
The Latin that you read in the
You
basement.
speak Latin?
Wait a minute, when Dana read that Latin thing a minute ago, she said it was nothing, like she knew what it meant before she read it, assuming it was gibberish. Now we find out she doesn't know Latin at all, so why the f*** did she think it was nothing?
It's almost like Dana's changing into less of a book-smart person, and Holden's becoming one. Like some kind of, I don't know, scholar, I guess. Leave it to CinemaSins to completely miss the point of the previous scene, where Marty flat out tells us that everyone's changed.
You seriously believe nothing weird is going on?
Conspiracy?
The way everybody's acting. Why is Jules suddenly a celebutard? And since when does Kurt pull this alpha male bullshit? I mean, he's a sociology major. He's on full academic scholarship, and now he's calling his friend an egghead?
I mean, for God's sake, he literally says, "We are not who we are."
We are not who we are.
Which is an X-Files reference, but still.
Okay, baby, let's see some boobies.
Show us the goods.
Does it really matter if we see
We're
her?
not the only ones watching, Ken.
Gotta keep the customer satisfied.
This scene makes no sense. As long as the gods know that she's a whore, that should suffice. But they make the fact that we need to see Jules' jewels a requirement for the sacrifice.
It's weird and sad that I have to spell this out again, but here goes. The gods are a metaphor for a horror film's audience, aka the reason why the film exists, and deciders of whether it lives or dies at the box office. Keeping the customer satisfied is referring to horror audiences expecting nudity. The horror archetype is determined based on who gets nude or has sex during the horror movie, aka at the cabin, and not who the person was before they came to the cabin in the woods. This is why Dana is considered to be a virgin despite not being one. The gods didn't know who the virgin was, who the whore was, or who any of the other archetypes were until they came to the cabin. This is why these people are being manipulated into character archetypes in the first place.
Does satisfying the customer also mean that the zombie redneck torture family stabs hands before they stab something more vital?
Yeah, weird. I wonder why the zombie family would want to inflict pain before mortal wounds.
Zombie redneck torture family?
Yeah, so strange.
Redneck torture family?
I'm just clueless.
Torture family?
Haven't the vaguest idea why they would do torture.
Also, I suppose that satisfying the customer also means having a lot of quick cuts during a dark scene, so you don't know what the f*** is going on.
I'm beginning to think CinemaSins is watching this movie in a fully lit room during the day, or some other inhospitable environment for horror films. I watched this in the theater and at home with the lights out and had no trouble telling what was happening.
How did they get the blood from the cabin grounds to the temple so quickly?
Now, this is just a personal theory of mine, and I don't know if it's 100% true, but there's nothing disproving it that I can tell, so here goes. I think the blood being used to mark each of the teens' deaths is sacrificial blood, like sheep's blood, that's stored before the ritual in vials, not the teen's blood itself. I think this because getting the teen's blood would be nearly impossible to do in certain cases, like if someone dies in the lake. Did they filter out the entire lake to get the blood?
I thought there'd be stars.
This is a tip-off to him that he's not in reality.
No, the teens are still in the reality of the film's universe. It's just being controlled.
The sin is for the fact that these detail-obsessed horror movie-making business underlings down under never thought to put stars in the sky.
Yeah, it's almost like a movie satirizing horror films and the system that produces them has a scene pointing out that even with a whole corporation behind a project, there can still be huge flaws.
I'm not leaving here without Jules.
He just said she was dead.
No, he didn't. He said she was gone.
Where's Jules?
She's gone.
That's vague, so of course Dana wants to know what really happened to Jules for herself.
He was her boyfriend who enjoyed f***ing her. This zombie redneck torture dude bothered to carry Jules' head all the way to the cabin, somewhat for the scares, but mainly because he's an asshole.
How is this a sin? All CinemaSins did was describe what the torture dude did. Or maybe CinemaSins is trying to say torture dude went through extra effort to terrify the rest of the teens, to which I'd counter by highlighting the torture part of torture dude's name.
There's a chemical that makes you want to split up, but not stay together.
Why would the organization want a chemical that makes people stick together? I'm starting to think CinemaSins doesn't understand the why does everyone split up in horror films joke here.
Also, why is Kurt the only one of them that's affected by this terribly specific decision-making gas?
All of them except Marty are affected by the gas. That's why they agree to split up.
This isn't right. We should split up. We can cover more ground that way.
Yeah, good idea.
This outfit's surveillance gear is so tight a high-as-f*** stoner just discovered it after knocking over a goddamn lamp.
It's explained later that the reason Marty's uncovering the truth about the cabin is because he's high.
Cleanup says the prep team missed one of the kids' stashes. Whatever he's been smoking's been immunizing him to all our shit.
So being high isn't a debilitation. It's making Marty paranoid and privy to all the tricks the organization are pulling. Some people would see the camera in the lamp and just say, whatever, that just looks like an electrical wire or something. But Marty's paranoia makes him more likely to investigate these things. Plus, the organization has redundancies in place to deal with the sacrifices finding stuff like cameras, which is why after this scene, Hadley says,
Chem department, I need 500 cc's of Thorazine pumped into room 3.
He came back to life after the crowbar stabbing, so let's stab him with a knife over and over. God, this girl is stupid.
I don't understand calling Dana stupid when stabbing Matthew with the crowbar seemed to incapacitate him, at least for a short while. Stabbing him more made him stop for a longer amount of time.
Also, this is the problem with monsters, even in meta-horror movies. This zombie can't be killed, even if it's been dismembered, but for whatever reason, it stops zombieing after Dana knifes him in the chest a few times.
It's a reference to slasher films like Halloween, where the killer isn't stopped by being stabbed or shot, instead becoming incapacitated for a short time. I fail to see how it's a problem when the purpose of its existence in this film is satire. Joss Whedon called Cabin in the Woods a very loving hate letter. On some level, it was trying to figure out what the most fun we could have would be. On another level, it's a serious critique of what we love and what we don't about horror movies. But I guess you can't showcase a silly trope in your satire movie because it's silly.
What about Marty?
They got him.
How the ever-loving does Kurt know this?
Maybe he heard Marty screaming when he was dragged off? I don't know, it's just a guess.
Why does Japan need to kill 20 innocent schoolgirls while America has to kill 5 stupid college kids? What's the minimum amount of death required?
The American branch of the organization only has to kill 4 of the 5 teens. The virgin can live or die.
The virgin's death is optional, as long as it's last.
The rules for the Japanese branch are probably about as insane as J-horror itself. I mean, have you seen a Japanese horror film?
しゅんくん助けて。ミカだけど。助けて。
Also, I go back to the satisfied customer thing. If they demand nudity and sex, then Japan already failed with this 9-year-old schoolgirl scenario.
This was already pointed out.
The shot of the ghosts in Japan is goddamn hilarious, and I'm tempted to remove a sin. But the fact that the director needs an athlete, a whore, and a fool, in addition to a scholar and a virgin for proper sacrifice, makes this grade school setting definitely sinful.
I'd say I'm surprised CinemaSins are just repeating sins now, but that'd be a lie.
Whatever he's racing to, in order to close the tunnel, he has to go through locker rooms, and that just feels like a total and complete failure of planning.
He's taking a shortcut, calm down.
That tunnel should have blown hours ago.
Yeah, but we didn't get the order.
Didn't get the order? You mean there's a scenario by which you wouldn't have caused that cave-in?
I question CinemaSins questioning a horror film satirizing horror films by pointing out the huge mistakes Hollywood makes when they've based their entire existence on pointing out those exact mistakes.
Wouldn't this just be standard protocol to cave in the tunnel under every circumstance?
It's implied that the tunnel being blown is standard procedure, but the timing for it needs to be approved.
How the does he know how to do that? He just ran from his usual post and hotwired someone else's to explode instantly. How the
CinemaSins being blown away by someone knowing how electronics work is kind of adorable. Did they think electricians are magicians?
Also, they blew the tunnel manually, which could have ended up killing these guys on its own, which, if I'm watching this movie correctly, means they would have this whole thing up by killing them like this.
If the organization doesn't try to blow the tunnel, the teens get away and the ritual fails. If the organization blows the tunnel, at least there's a chance they won't kill the teens and they can still go forward with the ritual.
Don't hold back.
He's about to jump a gorge and try to rescue everyone, and you tell him this, because you are a screenwriter cliche of a character.
Holden's a cliche of a character because that's the whole point of the film, pointing out horror cliches and tropes. He's wearing glasses now because of this. This is the whole point of the movie. The entire point.
This badass reveal completely neutered by the previous scene of the eagle flying into the grid and falling. Thanks for tipping your hand super early, movie.
CinemaSins already sinned this, so I'll do the same.
Another thing, how are they getting the blood from these people? And how does the blood travel from anywhere in their little horror park to the right place?
CinemaSins already sinned this too.
How did they get the blood from the cabin grounds to the temple so quickly?
This is a new low for CinemaSins. I expected wholly incorrect criticisms, boner jokes, and the attention span of a gnat, but to just see the same sins over and over really highlights the desperation of the whole operation.
Okay, no matter what happens, you gotta stay calm.
Are you telling me this asshole was just waiting back here, biding his time, looking for a dramatic opportunity to kill this dude?
Yep. Have CinemaSins ever seen a horror film?
She's still alive.
The virgin's death is optional, as long as it's last.
And convenient to the plot.
Having the virgin's fate being determined last is satirizing horror film plots. How is this convenient to the plot of this film? If anything, it's inconvenient, because Cabin in the Woods has to shape itself around horror tropes that already exist, instead of creating unique situations to fit its own plot.
This redneck zombie dick hasn't killed Dana yet. Apparently he needed to work on his biceps before killing her.
Torture family. They love to torture. That explains the torture.
Also, Marty killed zombie Judah out of the camera view, but he still had to walk all this way back to the dock, so why didn't the cameras pick him up then?
Maybe the people watching the monitors were distracted for some reason. I don't know, just a guess.
How did he ensure they'd stop in places where they could see monsters but not be killed by them?
It didn't matter if they stayed up top or if they went down the elevator. They were in danger either way.
Where else are we gonna go?
This is basically a haunted elevator ride, but how are they moving this thing after it started in the grave?
It's probably an automated system for returning the previously released monsters back into storage.
And what exactly keeps this ghost behind the glass again?
I like how CinemaSins questions the glass the ghost can't pass through and not the ghost itself.
They made us choose how we die.
Except you two, of course, who have managed to sneak into the actual facility controlling all of this. You're going to die by completely different means, I'm guessing, now that you've infiltrated the compound and broken the entire sacrificial death model.
How is this a sin at all? CinemaSins is just explaining the movie here.
Nice shot, but this method of monster storage seems way too complex and impossible for any kind of efficiency.
This storage system is a reference to Cube and is the catalyst for one of the greatest scenes in modern horror films, but, you know, whatever. It looks kinda silly. Ding, I guess.
You shouldn't be here. This should have gone differently.
Whoever's voice this is seriously thinks this situation is a talking to away from being contained.
That's the director, aka Sigourney Weaver. If CinemaSins watched the film all the way through at least once before writing their sins, they'd know this.
Dana somehow knows how to work this control board in order to unleash all the monsters.
It's not implied that Dana knows how to work the control board for the containment cubes, and I don't think anyone needs a lesson on how to hit a giant red button. The hell is that weird sound coming out of CinemaSins' mouth?
Also, this is a great shot, but there's no f***ing way that snake could have fit in that elevator car.
Here is a shot of that snake fitting in that elevator car.
Requesting immediate reinforcements, code black.
Truman saw Black Widow fruitlessly cock her gun against non-gunnable opponents in the Avengers, and was compelled to get in on that sweet, useless gun cocking action.
Black Widow hate number... a lot. Marty kills a zombie with a gun later, so not all of the monsters are non-gunnable, or whatever CinemaSins' dumb joke word was.
Marty and Dana get out of the control room, but this is Monster Central because the elevators keep taking monsters here. Yet there's only a few obstacles for them when they run out, making their escape too easy.
The control room was Monster Central when the monsters were first released, but now they're rampaging the entire facility. They're not all at the control room anymore.
Are you afraid of unicorns? You will be.
Shut up, shut the hell up.
The one redeemable character working at this place unceremoniously dies, despite the fact that he was the only one who seemed to have a conscience. And yeah, sure, he blows up these zombies real good, but what a lame ending for this character.
Who the hell thinks sacrificing yourself in a bloody explosion is lame?
The Virgin.
Virgin?
We work with what we have.
If we're supposedly sating a bunch of demons known as the Ancient Ones, they certainly would know whether or not someone's a virgin, right? Why are they so easily fooled by appearances?
Again, the Ancient Ones are a metaphor for the audience, and appearances are all an audience has to go by. It doesn't matter who a person was or if they were a virgin before the ritual. All that matters are their actions during the ritual, aka the horror movie. If a character acts like a virgin during the ritual, the audience will assume that this is the case even if it isn't. This is why Dana has this interaction with Holden.
I don't want to... I mean, I don't mean never.
Dana is being manipulated to act like the archetype of a horror film virgin.
Also, you had two girls. One was a dedicated student in a committed relationship, and the other just had an improper sexual tryst with her teacher. But you chose Jules to make into a whore, and Dana is the virgin?
The Ancient Ones. The gods that used to rule the earth. As long as they accept our sacrifice, they remain below.
Yeah, but what made them go down there in the first place?
What makes people watch horror films? Please stop taking the metaphor literally.
Also, hasn't this one also failed, though? Considering the stoner survived, and both he and the virgin made their way through the compound into the stone ritual room?
I don't even need to ask. CinemaSins are not watching the film at this point. The entire premise for the third act of Cabin in the Woods is that the ritual can still be completed if Marty dies. That's why Sitterson said, kill him.
Kill him.
That's why the director says to Marty, you can die with them or you can die for them.
We're talking about the agonizing death of every human soul on the planet, including you. You can die with them, or you can die for them.
That's why Dana pulls a gun on Marty. Like, you can't just say whatever and pretend it's a criticism.
Is the director a supernatural being, or just a badass older lady that can fairly easily kick a younger man's ass?
The director is Sigourney Weaver, so the answer is both.
Redneck zombie axe machina.
No, you can't do that. You can't combine a terrible understanding of Deus Ex Machina with a pun. No. Something you probably noticed about CinemaSins video is that they seem to have a very strange understanding of satire and parody, and by that I mean none at all. Throughout their video, CinemaSins failed to understand things Cabin in the Woods was satirizing, like gratuitous horror film nudity, the dumb blonde trope, the harbinger trope, the 5 horror character archetypes, the let's split up trope. The organization is Hollywood and directors/producers. The ancient ones are the audience. Which is odd considering one of the first excuses CinemaSins use when defending their videos is that they're satirizing cynical film reviewers. CinemaSins Jeremy himself said so on Reddit. We're playing a character, a know-it-all, movie-obsessed, nitpicking asshole. Their fans will also use this excuse when debating the channel's merits. But here's the rub. Cabin in the Woods deals entirely in pointing out horror and Hollywood cliches to satirize them. It's the entire purpose of the film. To watch Cabin in the Woods and not understand the satire at play is to not truly watch it. Cabin in the Woods requires at least a general understanding of satire, an understanding CinemaSins seems to lack. But Bob, CinemaSins said they're playing a character. That character might not understand the satire at play here. Sure, that could be true, but satire executed well leaves no question of its existence. If CinemaSins' character was meant to satirize a know-it-all, movie-obsessed, nitpicking asshole for comedy, then why are there sins in CinemaSins' video that I didn't show because they were accurate criticisms of the movie? Like how Patience got to the sacrificial room.
Just how the f*** did Patience get down here? Does she also know how to manually override the elevator controls?
Or how Marty recovered from being stabbed in the back.
I'm sure there have been people that have survived 5-inch trowel attacks directly to their spine, but I'm guessing they typically don't immediately go on a walk, fight, and eventually be the f***ing hero.
These are valid nitpicks among blatantly incorrect statements and flawed understandings of film. How are we supposed to discern which sins are serious and which are wrong on purpose? It's not always obvious which is which, and I won't even talk about the instances where CinemaSins Jeremy nitpicks movies on his personal channel only for those same criticisms to show up in Everything Wrong With videos. I talk all about that in my Avengers Age of Ultron video, but it's here, where the line between satire and sincerity becomes blurred, that you've completely failed at satire, which is why I'm doubting CinemaSins' understanding of Cabin in the Woods and subsequent criticism and satire of criticism of it. The point of satire is to exaggerate something fundamental about a person or concept to make a point. The point of Cabin in the Woods was to provide commentary on the state of horror films and the process that churns them out, as well as the audience that eats up gore porn and slasher films, while satirizing common horror tropes. What's the point of CinemaSins? To mock nitpicky film reviewers? The mockery isn't nearly exaggerated enough to read as a joke. Truth is, any point CinemaSins could be making with their supposed satire has been lost in their flawed understanding of it. And if their videos actually had a point, it was made years ago with their first few videos. If that point hasn't been made by now, it never will be. And there's reason to doubt there ever was one to begin with.